When I donned the uniform of an officer, I once engaged with a military academy student. After being incarcerated, the alpha I had meticulously trained became the warden of the prison. Within the confines of the solitary cell, he coaxed me into a heated state, his foot pressing down upon my vulnerable glands, attempting to humiliate me. Is this pleasurable for you? Despicable, I retorted, lifting my eyelids. Apply more pressure. Have you not eaten? Oh. A new warden arrived at the prison. An inmate ogled the crowd, drooling. The new warden is quite the looker. He gestured vaguely toward the uniformed man in the distance. That waist, those hips, those legs. Exquisite. Following his words, my gaze drifted from his waist to his hips, then to his legs. Lifting my eyes, I met Gu Juan's stare directly. TSK. My glands were itching. Gu Juan's core and lower body strength were exceptional, something I had meticulously trained. I preferred things rough, and Gu Juan possessed immense physical power. He had once been my most satisfying plaything. Gu Juan swept a cold glance over me before lowering his gaze, listening to the inspector beside him. That inspector, Bai Mu, was a beta. The icy chill in Gu Juan's eyes warmed when they landed on him, a warmth I had never received. Bai Mu remarked when he first arrived. We subjected him to daily torture, but it was futile. He's stubborn as iron. He was referring to me. The brim of his cap obscured half of Gu Juan's face, hiding his expression, but I heard the stiffness in his voice as he uttered my name. During the Southern District gang wars, Lin Yu sustained injuries worse than any federal torture. Conventional methods are useless on him. He fears no pain. Don't blame yourself. The Lin Yu he spoke of was me, one of the Southern District's most notorious gang leaders, a vicious criminal, and now Warden Gu Juan, who had once been my kept pet. Later, it was he who personally delivered me to this prison. After all, we had shared a bed. Gu Juan knew me well. From now on, I'll handle Lin Yu's interrogations. You need not concern yourself further. Bai Mu grew agitated. Why? Juan, do you think I'm incompetent? Torturing me had become Bai Mu's greatest pleasure in this prison. Gu Juan responded gently, don't overthink it. That's not what I meant. His refusal to let Bai Mu interrogate me was likely to prevent him from uncovering things he shouldn't know, such as how this Federation's youngest Major General had endured humiliation as my lover for 5 years to capture me, a hardened criminal. This scandal was concealed by the Federation under the guise of undercover work, never to be publicized. But there was more filth beneath. Back when I discovered Gu Juan's secret affection for Bai Mu, I deliberately called to confess my crimes, luring Bai Mu, who was investigating me, to my estate. As Bai Mu was led to the room, separated only by a door, I forced Gu Juan to engage with me in the bathroom. The moment Bai Mu arrived, Gu Juan turned fierce and violent. He bruised my thighs and bit my shoulder until it bled. I slapped him repeatedly, then grinned and kissed his ear, whispering, thrilling, isn't it? Gu Juan's eyes darkened with unconcealed hatred, covering my mouth to silence my words and moans. Terrified Bai Mu might hear, yet, Gu Juan must have found it stimulating too. He was more aroused than ever, his sweat dripping onto my back, feeling hotter. After finishing with him, I would don a bathrobe and stride out, boldly displaying the love bites on my chest and abdomen to Bai Mu. Exploiting his inability to detect pheromones, I lied shamelessly, apologies for the wait. My new omega is too irresistible. I couldn't pull away. Then, glancing at Bai Mu's lower abdomen, I raised an eyebrow and teased, care to try, Officer Bai? I'll lend him to you for a couple of days. Bai Mu flushed crimson, unable to meet my gaze, cursing me as a bastard. But I didn't mind his insults, because Bai Mu was instrumental in molding Gu Juan into the perfect toy. Whenever I threatened him with Bai Mu, Gu Juan would endure any humiliation, comply with my every whim, and even utter a few soft words. Upon entering prison, I reflected deeply on my past life and concluded, arrogance invites retribution. Back when I involved Bai Mu in my games, I never imagined I'd end up a prisoner, forced to watch Gu Juan and him be intimate right before my eyes. Had I known, I should have driven Gu Juan to his death. Let him die in my bed, sparing me this torment. Recreation time ended. I patted my backside and stood to return, when someone approached, sniffing near the nape of my neck. Lin Yu, you smell divine. His nose nearly brushed against my inhibitor patch. Startled, I shuddered and spun around, landing a punch squarely on the scoundrel's face. I pinned him to the ground, beating him relentlessly until his face was bloodied, then grabbed his collar and demanded, come on, smell me again. Do I still smell good? He licked the blood from his lips, grinning maniacally. heavenly. Recklessly, he leaned closer to my ear and whispered. I caught it. Little strawberry, my eyes turned icy cold as I threw another punch. Seeking death. A sharp pain struck my back. A baton, and I instantly lost strength. Several guards swarmed, pinning me down and cuffing me. A pair of pristine police boots stepped into view. Gu Juan's voice descended, official and detached. Inmate 2745. Inciting violence. 3 days in solitary confinement. Effective immediately. I struggled briefly, looking up at him. Sir, he touched me first. Isn't it unfair to punish only me? Unfair? Gu Juan replied heartlessly. Then make it 5 days. This was pure abuse of power. Gu Juan was undoubtedly retaliating against me. The solitary cell was cramped and dark, stretching time into an endless void. My glands swelled and itched increasingly. A heat cycle was coming on. Gu Juan had triggered my early onset, filling the room with the scent of strawberries. Biting my arm, eyes red, I fought to suppress the discomfort of the heat. The emptiness wasn't just physical but psychological too. Loneliness, anxiety, and sorrow surged like beasts, hard to endure. Yet I was accustomed to it. Before Gu Juan, all my heat cycles had been endured this way, locked away, resisting alone. For 25 years, aside from Gu Juan, everyone who knew I was an Omega was dead. By my hand. After taming Gu Juan into my exclusive toy, my heats became more manageable. I would force him to hold me, provoke him with harsh words, make him ruthless. The fiercer, the better. The sensation was addictive. His pheromones would entwine with mine, invading forcefully, soothing every trembling nerve. Merely recalling such scenes made me shiver with pleasure. I longed for his embrace. Stretching my neck against the wall, my hand slipped into my trousers. Just as I began, the cell door opened. Someone entered swiftly, closed the door, adjusted his cap, and glanced at me. Gu Juan brought a lamp, placed it on the table, pulled a chair before me, and sat, studying me under the faint light. Gazing at his face, I licked my parched lips, vision blurry, my actions indecent. Tipping my head back, I panted, deliberately moaning aloud. Yet Gu Juan remained unmoved. Of course, he despised me. Had I not forced him, Gu Juan would never have deigned to touch me. Every entanglement was my antidote, but for Gu Juan, it was humiliation. Now, I didn't expect Gu Juan to condescend to comfort me. I only wanted to use his image for relief. If I could lure out his pheromones, even better. But there were none. Gu Juan was utterly composed. He sat there, coldly observing my feverish state, relishing my agony, and fixating on my yearning. After observing for a while, he crossed his legs and leaned back slightly, asking bluntly, "Where is Zhuang Rong's pharmaceutical factory?" Zhuang Rong is the leader of the federal gang, my immediate superior. The pharmaceutical factory that Gu Juan inquired about is the one that the Federation is most eager to discover. The illicit drug trade is a vast industry, flowing with gold, and Zhuang Rong guards his secrets closely. The Federation has been unable to uncover anything after years of investigation. As long as I remain silent about the location of the factory, the Federation will not eliminate me. If I wish to survive, this trump card must not be revealed. Curious, are we? I was drenched in sweat, leaning against the wall, brazenly sizing him up. Release a bit of pheromone for me to smell. Smell it, and I shall divulge the information to you. Is that what you desire? Gu Juan slowly leaned forward, placing his hand on the nape of his neck as if to peel off his suppressive patch, observing my deliberate provocation. Then come closer, crawl over to me. I swallowed hard, almost able to sense his scent, instinctively inching forward, grasping the hem of Gu Juan's trousers, tilting my chin up in anticipation. Suddenly, Gu Juan leaned back, extending his long leg and with a slight force, effortlessly kicked me down. Before I could rise, the cold sole of his shoe pressed against the back of my neck. He ground it into my vulnerable gland, his demeanor vicious. Want my pheromone? Do you think you deserve it? Do you believe I am still your obedient dog, summoned at your whim? Gu Juan was taking revenge under the guise of duty. When he was initially captured by me, he refused to obey, demanding a kiss only if I first fought him. He was fierce indeed. Thus, I administered a drug to Gu Juan, placing him into a receptive period. During this receptive phase, an alpha is remarkably fragile, and so was Gu Juan. He would plead for my comfort. Yet I, in punishment, merely observed him with cold indifference, not touching him at all. Eventually, I softened his resolve. A military academy student, newly assigned for an internship, was thus trained into an obedient dog by the very villain he despised. At that time, no matter how much he loathed me, he could only vent his frustrations in bed. Gu Juan pressed down harder on my gland, and I could not suppress a soft whimper. He mockingly taunted, "What is this? Is this pleasurable for you? Truly despicable." I recognized Gu Juan's intent to humiliate me. Yet, I found that I indeed derived a twisted pleasure from his actions. My gland throbbed and itched, and Gu Juan's pressure was precisely what I needed. I lifted my eyelids to glance at him, intentionally provoking him, hoping to drive him away. "A bit harder, have you not eaten? If you are unsatisfied, perhaps I could summon another alpha for you." The heat of the moment rendered an omega exceedingly vulnerable, and I feared that in a haze, I might utter things I should not. Gu Juan glowered at me, possibly displeased by his failed attempt at humiliation. He truly lacked the essence of a villain. Though he stood over me, I still had him under my influence. Gu Juan withdrew his foot and yanked me up from the ground. "So, any alpha can satisfy you, is that it?" "Of course." I laughed fearlessly. "Right now, I have no choice, but if the officer could show a bit of kindness, perhaps find me a handsome one." Gu Juan pressed his lips together, his gaze sharp as a knife. "Lin Yu, you are truly filthy." Filthy? Had he not previously licked me clean of his saliva? I scoffed. My eyes reddened from the torment of need. "Have you finished insulting me? Can you summon someone to help me?" Gu Juan let out a cold laugh. "What reason do I have to call someone for your pleasure? This is a prison, not your pleasure palace. There are no boys here for your amusement." He tossed me aside and leaned back, cruelly stating, "Endure it." The heat intensified, my clothes sticking to my body with sweat. I could hardly endure, squirming on the ground. Amid the chaos, Gu Juan tempted me. "Tell me the location of the factory, and I shall offer you my pheromone." I had seen masters train dogs, but never a dog attempting to train its master. I lacked the strength even to laugh, raising my hand to pinch my vulnerable gland. "Threatening me?" Gu Juan's pupils constricted as he seized my wrist. "Have you lost your mind?" I paid him no heed. This bout of heat was overwhelming. I even contemplated kneeling before Gu Juan, offering him anything he desired, just to receive his pheromone. I banged my head against the ground in a frenzy, hoping to knock myself unconscious. Gu Juan watched me, pursing his lips, tearing off his suppressive patch, allowing the scent of citrus to flow through the darkened space. It beckoned my pheromones, gradually soothing my restlessness. I felt a measure of comfort, unconsciously gravitating toward him. Gu Juan's gaze flickered slightly, raising his hand to touch my gland when his communicator rang. An anxious voice came through. "Officer, there has been a riot in the cafeteria, and Deputy Bai has been injured." Gu Juan's expression turned cold, unhesitatingly pushing me away, applying his suppressive patch, and hastily departing. "Has the medic arrived?" "I'm on my way." The connection of pheromones was forcibly severed. My gaze momentarily turned vacant. Gu Juan caught in my throat. "Don't go. Come back to me." He did not hear. Darkness, emptiness, and loneliness once more enveloped me. I curled up on the ground, feeling weak enough to cry. Damn this heat. When the door to the isolation room swung open again, I was already worn down by the heat, my limbs feeling weak. I could hardly muster the strength to look up. Even the footsteps were recognizable. It was Bai Mu. He had interrogated me for 3 months when I first entered prison. Various tortures had been inflicted upon me. The sound of his footsteps now triggered a reflexive fear. Bai Mu appeared languid, yet his methods were sadistically twisted. He relished whipping me, first tearing my clothes to shreds, leaving me bare. Then he would gradually flay my skin. Afterward, he would personally stitch up my wounds. Each time he employed torture, Bai Mu was visibly exhilarated. Even if he tried to restrain himself, it eventually became apparent. When Bai Mu was excited, his eyes would gleam, pupils constricting, and his breath would quicken. He rubbed my gland with his fingertips, as if to wipe away the dust. Then, he covered it with a layer of suppressive patch. Bai Mu's voice was gentle. "The most notorious villain in the South District, Lin Yu, turns out to be an Omega. Can you guess what awaits you if the alphas in prison find out? They will likely ruin you." He rubbed my gland fiercely through the suppressive patch. "Lin Yu, keep your pheromones to yourself. Stop enticing Gu Juan. Otherwise, I have countless methods to make you wish for death." These two were indeed engaged in a mutual secret infatuation. Bai Mu remained unaware that the other protagonist in the Spring Palace he had once heard of was Gu Juan. How amusing! I smirked, retaliating against him, Officer by, has Gu Juin ever spoken of me to you? Did you know he was used as a tool to relieve my heat for 5 years? Gu Juin's pheromone is quite cheap. Regardless of his reluctance, it cannot prevent it from wildly beckoning my own. Gathering my strength, I suddenly pushed Bai Mu down, pinning him beneath me, gripping his neck. Does Gu Juin have that kind of passion for you? Have you seen him in a frenzy, demanding? I inhaled the scent near his neck, leaning close to his ear, whispering, "Can he even rise to the occasion with you?" Bai Mu displayed no emotion and made no attempt to resist, allowing me to hold him. His pupils constricted, and his breath quickened. Damn it, I had even excited him. Originally, I aimed to provoke Bai Mu into giving me a shot. The medical conditions in Shifeng prison were deplorable. Should I fall into a coma from my severe injuries, I would be transferred to a neighboring planet. Once aboard the spacecraft, my escape would be assured. Yet, given the current circumstances, that scheme was no longer viable. Bai Mu, that twisted little coward, displayed no anger whatsoever. My gaze grew increasingly somber, and my grip tightened. This might be one of the few opportunities one had to eliminate Bai Mu. Moreover, killing the warden would likely result in my transfer to a higher-level prison. The specifics of the transfer were inconsequential. As long as I boarded the ship, I would have considerable maneuverability. Suddenly, Bai Mu flashed me a smile while I struggled to breathe beneath his weight. Gu Juin underwent 6 months of psychological counseling after returning to the Federation. He feels filthy. Lin Yu, Gu Juin finds you repugnant to the extent of self-loathing. What use is your coercion? Gu Juin will never, ever love you. A sharp pang pierced my heart. Who needed Gu Juin's affection? The door to the isolation chamber burst open, and someone strode in, kicking me aside. The force of the kick was overwhelming, leaving me sprawled on the ground, unable to rise for a long while. Turning my head, I saw Gu Juin assisting Bai Mu, inquiring, "How are you?" Bai Mu shook his head, whispering, "I only intended to deliver a suppression patch. I didn't expect this. Damn, I had miscalculated and fell victim to a devious scheme, that devious green tea." Gu Juin's eyes darkened, and he commanded the guards nearby, "Take the prisoner to the interrogation room." My wrist must have been broken by that kick. Enduring the pain, I was yanked up by the prison guards. Glaring at Gu Juin's retreating figure, I muttered disinterestedly, "He provoked me first." I was at a loss as to how to provoke Gu Juin. He drew his gun, aiming it at me, and pulled the trigger. My pupils constricted. The bullet whizzed past my ear, striking the wall behind me. Gu Juin held the gun with a detached expression. "Number 2745, this is a prison, not the South District. Regardless of the reason you murdered a warden, under federal law, I can execute you immediately. You'd best understand that, in this place, your life is in the hands of others." I stared at him for a moment, raised my hands in surrender, and smiled. "I wouldn't dare, Chief." I repeated softly, self-mockingly, "I wouldn't dare again." Truly, the heat period had put me in a dire predicament, reduced to explaining myself to an alpha who despised me. After enduring a beating in the interrogation room, I managed to sneak away a small knife upon my release. While in the dormitory restroom, Zheng Wei clandestinely approached me, whispering, "Brother Yu, I performed rather well, didn't I?" I ruffled his hair casually. Less chatter. The performance a few days prior was staged for Gu Juin's benefit. I had coached Zheng Wei on what to say and do in advance. Only by mentioning my pheromones could I genuinely invoke anger. The more authentic the act, the less Gu Juin would suspect. The purpose of this charade was twofold. Firstly, to be placed in solitary confinement to safely endure the impending heat period, and secondly, to test Gu Juin in preparation for a potential escape. Shifeng prison, situated on a desolate planet, could be navigated if I acquired Gu Juin's pheromones to deceive the intelligent verification system, granting me half of the prison's authority. If I could also obtain Gu Juin's cerebral interface, I could pilot the spacecraft, securing my escape with absolute certainty. I needed to deceive Gu Juin once more. I had taken the knife from the interrogation room, and Gu Juin would soon discover it. Yet, 3 days passed without him seeking me out. On the 4th day, after finishing my mining duties, I was escorted by the guards to a room. I breathed a sigh of relief. If he didn't seek me out soon, I would have to change my approach. Gu Juin sat behind a desk, reviewing documents. In Shifeng, the magnetic field was too chaotic. All communication relied on paper files. He didn't lift his gaze, coolly instructing, "Show it to me." I feigned ignorance. "What? The knife you stole? I don't know what you're talking about." Gu Juin set down the documents and approached me. his hand slipping into my pants pocket. His fingers brushed against my thigh through the thin fabric. I exhaled towards his Adam's apple. "Chief, are you assaulting me?" Gu Juin ignored my comment, but when he found no blade in my pocket, he scrutinized me, gripping my face and prying my mouth open. Using his teeth, he bit off the glove from my right hand, and his fingers delved into my mouth, extracting the damp little blade, which he tossed onto the table. "Possession of a deadly weapon warrants electric torture," he stated. I extended my tongue to lick his fingers. "Then go ahead, don't spare me." Gu Juin remained unmoved. "Linyu, are you afraid of death?" Naturally, no one is unafraid of death, especially when I was striving to survive. "If you're afraid of death, listen to me. Stay obediently in prison and reform." I chuckled. "Chief, I have a life sentence. Reforming 1T lead to freedom. A life sentence is still better than death, don't you think?" I disagreed. What difference was there between a life sentence and death? I glanced at the knife on the table, edging closer to Gu Juin, feigning to reach for it. The last Omega who entered prison was killed. When he died, his glands were bitten to shreds. "Chief, have some pity. I merely wish to defend myself." Gu Juin seized my left wrist, and while he was momentarily distracted, I swiftly tore off the suppression patch from the nape of his neck, then ripped off my own. The pheromones intertwined in an instant. The citrus scent jubilantly surged towards me, lapping at every fiber of my essence, betraying its indifferent master. Gu Juin's eyes instantly turned crimson, glaring at me in fury, his rationality nearly consumed. "You." I smiled, sealing his lips with mine. As soon as our mouths met, Gu Juin locked my waist, pressing my head down as he ferociously bit me, tinged with a hint of reluctance. Ha, with such little composure, he dared to compete with me? Gu Juin laid me across the table, kissing from my lips to my chin, then licking my throat. I tilted my head back, stroking his hair, murmuring, "Be a bit rougher." Gu Juin obediently bit down on me. I relished the sensation, whispering, "Little pup, tear my clothes." Gu Juin's throat rolled as he tore at my garments, his displeasure evident. "Linyu, I am not your dog." I leaned back against the table to facilitate Gu Juin's ministrations. "Isn't it true that while licking me, you are indeed my dog?" Gu Juin bit me with frustration, his hand wandering towards my groin, yet hesitating to venture further, instinctively seeking my command. "Linyu." "Chief." I licked his lips, guiding his hand downward. "Come, end me." The tension was palpable when a knock sounded at the door. Bai Mu's voice echoed from outside. "Warden, are you there?" Gu Juin froze for a moment, excitement coursing through him. This scenario felt familiar. Gu Juin had indeed been well trained by me, reacting instinctively to Bai Mu's voice. Deep down, he was also a pervert. I stoked the flames of desire within Gu Juin, whispering in his ear, "Warden, Vice Officer Bai is calling for you." Gu Juin's desire intensified, roughly kneading my glands, his tone icy as he asked, "What is it?" Bai Mu's voice filtered in. "During the room check, number 2745 was absent. I came to seek clarification." Gu Juin pressed down on my waist, feigning seriousness. "I am interrogating him." Bai Mu fell silent for a moment. "Juin, may I come in? My wound reopened earlier. I need you to help bandage it." What a joke. How could I proceed if he entered? Gu Juin frowned, preparing to respond when I hooked my leg around his waist, lowering my head to bring my glands close to his lips. "Gu Juin, mark me." In an instant, I captured Gu Juin's full attention. He gazed at me, pupils constricting. "What did you say?" I reiterated, "Mark me. Make me your Omega." When I first bound Gu Juin, his bedding was inadequate, and in moments of weakness, he would always yearn to bite my glands. Each time I would slap him away. Once, he truly bit me, and before I could even inject my pheromones, I had already kicked him away. Stepping on his face, I exclaimed, "Dare to bite my gland again, and I shall wrench your canine teeth out." Gu Juin, in a hushed voice, inquired, "Why can't I mark you?" I scoffed. "What are you to be worthy of being my alpha? No one could ever assume that role. An Omega marked would ultimately lose control over their own body, becoming a parasitic vine that could not survive without an alpha. I would never allow myself to transform into such an Omega." Gu Juin opened his mouth, perplexed. "Then what are we?" I had kissed you, embraced you. His upbringing was vastly different from mine. This scion of a prestigious family had been taught since childhood that once one embraced an Omega, they must mark them, forging an everlasting bond, even if compelled. Despite being a villain, Even if he held no love for me, only disdain, Gu Juan was willing to shoulder a responsibility that he need not bear. Yet, I had no need for it. I deliberately stated, many have kissed and held me. Do they all become my alpha? In truth, none did, for I was too afraid to let anyone know I was an omega. Gu Juan was the first, and if all went as expected, he would also be the last. In the southern district, omegas were merely commodities and organs. No matter how capable, gender was an insurmountable barrier. Gu Juan lowered his gaze, asking, "Then what do I represent to you?" I replied, "A toy, a mere plaything to alleviate my heat." That was the first time Gu Juan exhibited intense hatred towards me. For a long time thereafter, he refused to meet my gaze, either cursing or biting me. Later, when I discussed collaboration, a partner sent a young boy to the estate, who massaged my feet. Gu Juan berated me for being filthy, for lacking decorum, for being disgusting, not a proper omega. Yet, despite his harsh words, his body was still fervent in its actions, competing in strength with the young boy. I could not fathom what an alpha had to prove against a small omega. Gu Juan's Adam's apple bobbed, his eyes bright, perhaps having already drowned out by Mu's voice. He bowed his head, fervently licking my gland at the nape of my neck, yet hesitated to bite down. I suspected my gland might swell from his relentless attention. Driven to the brink of madness by his torment, I huffed, "Are you going to bite or not? If not, then scram." Suddenly, my gland was pierced. My eyes widened, my gaze becoming unfocused. How delightful! The scent of citrus filled my nostrils. The villains of the southern district excelled in concocting hallucinogens. They would inject these drugs into an omega's glands and then deliver them to federal officials, using scandals as leverage to manipulate the Federation. Gu Juan had previously expressed his deep disdain for those federal parasites, mocking them. Little did he realize that he too would fall victim to such despicable tactics. I retrieved a police uniform from Gu Juan's wardrobe, tightened the waistband, and stood by the bed, gazing at the slumbering Gu Juan, before reaching out to grasp his throat. This man had once been intertwined with my very essence, sharing my deepest secrets. He had, at my most vulnerable, colluded with Bai Mu to send me to prison. He deserved death. Yet, I released my grip, donned Gu Juan's police cap, and kissed his forehead. Farewell, pet dog. However, for a beloved pet, I would always show leniency. Pray to the great sun of the galaxy, may we never cross paths again. Otherwise, I would take his life. In the dead of night, I accessed all prison privileges and brought Zheng Wei to the launch site. Upon locating Gu Juan's spacecraft, I halted, glancing back. Zheng Wei asked what is wrong. It was too quiet. An hour had passed since I had opened the prison access, and there was no sign of activity within. This was abnormal. Zheng Wei queried, "Boss, what is the matter?" I shook my head. Nothing. It no longer mattered. Once the spacecraft was operational, I would be free. I opened the hatch and stepped inside. My unease finally settled. Gu Juan sat in the cockpit, legs crossed, head bowed as he loaded energy rounds into the gun in his hands. Damn it, I had been played. I abruptly turned, shoving Zheng Wei behind me. "Run!" The gunfire erupted, and Zheng Wei let out a scream, collapsing to the ground, clutching his leg, blood soaking his hands. I froze. Zheng Wei, drenched in sweat, looked up at me. "Don't worry about me, boss, just run." Before he could finish, Gu Juan shot him in the shoulder. Blood splattered across Zheng Wei's face, yet his expression remained unchanged as he smiled at Gu Juan. "Come on, if you have the guts, kill me." Gu Juan replied coldly, "I grant your request." Executing a criminal was no significant matter for Gu Juan. What a fool, provoking him like that. I clenched my teeth, turned, and knelt before Gu Juan, shielding Zheng Wei, sweat dripping from my brow. "Please, sir, he was unaware. Don't make it difficult for him. The escape was my plan. He had no part in it." Zheng Wei had never witnessed me bowing before anyone. Clutching my clothing, he sobbed behind me, "Boss, don't kneel to him. Get up." Zheng Wei had been sent to me by the big boss, Zhuang Rong, when he was merely 16, having followed me for 6 years. He had killed for me, shielded me from bullets. After my capture, Zheng Wei surrendered and was sent to Shifeng prison. He said, "Brother, I fear you will be bullied alone in prison. I am yours. Wherever you go, I shall follow." I was quite easy to appease. A little kindness from others would prompt me to open my heart. Gu Juan's features were clouded with intense malice as he gripped his gun tightly. "Step aside. If you don't step aside, I will kill you first." I crawled closer, grasped the gun barrel, and pressed it against my forehead, then go ahead and kill me. Gu Juan pressed the gun forward, harshly against my brow. Do you truly believe I won? Pull the trigger. I did think so. After putting in so much effort to capture me, the Federation had yet to extract anything from me. How could they allow me to die? Moreover, if they intended to kill me, why hesitate? I held Gu Juan's trembling hand, locking eyes with him. Come on, pull the trigger. I bet he wouldn't dare. Stop lying, Lin Yu. You are too selfish to die for anyone. I gazed at him calmly, observing as he gradually unraveled, unable to bear the weight of his emotions, suddenly yanking the gun away, seizing my throat, pulling me close. If you could save him, why didn't you save me back then? Why could you abandon me? If you had no heart, it would be understandable, but you do. Gu Juan jabbed the gun into my chest, heavy and forceful, squeezing out a bitter truth between clenched teeth. Yet you do not give it to me. You claim I am your pet dog. In truth, I am less than that. When you left Fengcheng, you took even the dog. Yet you abandoned me. Back in Fengcheng, when negotiations fell through, an adversary had captured Gu Juan to threaten me. With the gun pressed to Gu Juan's temple, I remained unfazed as I lit a cigarette, saying, a toy. If you like it, I will gift it to you. I departed without casting a single glance at Gu Juan. Later, when the Federation intervened during the gunfight in Fengcheng, Gu Juan was struck in the leg by a stray bullet. As he was evacuated, I heard him call my name. I glanced back, then turned and boarded the spacecraft, leaving him behind in Fengcheng. I knew Gu Juan would not perish. He was the son of the Federal Marshal Gu Feng. The Federation was there to find him. It wasn't that I chose not to save him. I intended to let him go. Yet, through a series of events, Gu Juan returned. He had not been taken by the Federation. Instead, he was rescued by Fengcheng's partners and brought back to my side. As Gu Juan questioned me with tear-stained eyes about why I did not want him, I found myself at a loss for words. Overwhelmed by guilt towards him, I acquiesced to his every whim. The young boys in the estate were driven away by Gu Juan, and I remained silent. During that period, I had elevated Gu Juan to celestial heights in my adoration. It was only when he conspired with Bai Mu to personally consign me to prison that I understood the Federals had sought him first in Fengcheng. His return to my side was a decision of his own making. He had reported to the Federals, intent on delivering me to incarceration himself. Between us, it was difficult to discern who was more ruthless. Gu Juan's eyes burned crimson, seemingly consumed by an unquenchable hatred. Lin Yu, everything I endured, you shall experience in kind. Only then shall it be fair. As an S-class fugitive, I was incarcerated, with all punishments executed by Gu Juan himself. He bound me to the electric chair, coaxing me into a feverish state. The interrogation room was perpetually filled with the sickly sweet scent of strawberries, nauseatingly delightful. I loathed my own pheromones, despised being an omega, abhorred the pitch-black confines of the room. And Gu Juan, for he was the one who made me weep. Lin Yu, the notorious criminal of the South District, was devoid of tears. Yet, I found myself shedding them onto Gu Juan's sweat-drenched shoulder. My glands had been bitten repeatedly, the citrus and strawberry scents intertwining in a grotesque amalgamation. After Gu Juan thoroughly marked me, I could no longer resist the heat of my cycle. In a moment of lost reason, I knelt before him, pleading for his love. In my frustration, I left bite marks all over him. Gu Juan grasped my face and asked, "What does it feel like to be treated as a mere toy? Is it enjoyable? Lin Yu, you once treated me in precisely the same manner." He roughly wiped my tears away, commanding, "No more crying. This is your retribution." In a fit of rage, I slapped him across the face. Beast. I had never once engaged in such fervor. A month later, Zhang Wei orchestrated an explosion in the prison, seizing the chaos to storm the interrogation room. Drugged and weakened, I was carried by Zhang Wei. Blood oozed from the old wounds on my legs and shoulders, with the warden hot on our heels. At such a pace, neither of us would escape. I patted Zhang Wei's shoulder and urged, "Let me go. You must escape on your own." Zhang Wei, with gritted teeth and reddened eyes, shook his head. "I will not leave without you." As we turned down the corridor, Bai Mu approached from the opposite direction, raising his hand and firing a shot that struck Zhang Wei in the abdomen. I wriggled free from Zhang Wei's back and moved towards Bai Mu. "You go. Don't worry about me. They haven't extracted what they desire from me yet. They won't kill me." "You!" Bai Mu glanced behind me, his pupils suddenly constricting. He hastened his steps, yanking me towards him, and the gunfire erupted, energy rounds grazing my arm. Bai Mu pulled me into his embrace, his chest heaving violently, and fired again at what lay behind me. I experienced a moment of tinnitus, sluggishly turning my head. The first shot had been fired by Zheng Wei. That trajectory was aimed directly at my heart. Had Bai Mu not yanked me away, I would now be a lifeless body. Zheng Wei intended to kill me? I pushed Bai Mu away and lunged at Zheng Wei, grasping his collar, my eyes brimming with tears. You wish to kill me? Zheng Wei raised his bloodied hand, as if to caress my face, but halted just before contact. Boss. I'm sorry, Zhuang. I don't want to, but I cannot deceive you. Zheng Wei began to cough blood, gripping my collar tightly, his eyes wild with despair. Don't go out. He will kill you, please don't. Don't go out. He knows everything. Zheng Wei gasped his last. Staring at my blood-stained hands, I picked up the nearby gun and fired 5 shots into his lifeless body. Traitor. You all have betrayed me. Bai Mu seized my weapon. That's enough. He is already dead. I gazed at Zheng Wei's corpse, panting heavily. There was no escape. My loyalty to Zhuang Rong was tenuous at best. I had engaged in numerous illicit dealings. Zhuang Rong must have discovered everything. He intended to kill me. Escaping would only lead to my demise. What did this amount to? A dead end? Retribution? If we are to be wicked, none shall escape unscathed. I exhaled sharply, lifting my gaze to Bai Mu. Did you not demand my confession? I will confess everything, Officer Bai. Let us record my statement. Since they wished for my demise, let it be so for all. Bai Mu crouched down, producing a pristine white handkerchief to wipe the blood from my hands. You need to recuperate. What sort of reaction was this? I said I am willing to confess. Bai Mu appeared deaf to my words. Are you injured? Playing the fool, are we? I scrutinized him for a moment before coldly laughing. Very well, you refuse to record my statement? Then I shall seek others. I attempted to rise from the ground, but Bai Mu yanked me back down, pinning my shoulders firmly, his voice low as he warned, Do you truly understand? You are no longer the overlord of the South District. You are a criminal. Right now, it is only Zhuang Rong who seeks your life. If you confess, you will lose your value, and the federals will also seek your death. Lin Yu, do not court death. Court death? Is there any way out for me? I met his gaze with a smile, Officer Bai. Do you not see? If I perish, no one will vie with you for Gu Zhuan. You should. Silence. Bai Mu interrupted, veins bulging on his forehead. His voice hoarse. You shall not. Ah Shun. You cannot abandon me a second time. I paused, my hands trembling. You called me what? Bai Mu's expression was frigid. Have you forgotten? I knew you would not remember. Though it seemed he had anticipated this, I could not help but feel aggrieved, and I cursed him fiercely. Liar. Ah Shun was the name Gang Gu had bestowed upon me. He was a subordinate of Zhuang Rong, overseeing human trafficking. The second year after I was sold into the underground world, I worked under him. Gang Gu claimed I was obedient, thus naming me Ah Shun. In the underground, an Omega faced only 2 fates, being sold as a person or having their glands sold. I did not wish to be sold, so I took a third path, deliberately damaging my own glands to become an unsellable defective product, turning into an accomplice. I was more ruthless and compliant than the alphas under Gang Gu, which allowed me to carve out a path to survival. Agu was brought back at the age of 8 and had followed me ever since. Due to his extraordinary beauty, the traffickers mistook him for an Omega, but upon discovering he was an Alpha, they could not sell him and thus made him work alongside me. When Agu turned 12, the market for handsome Alphas suddenly surged. When he was sold, I pleaded with Gang Gu to keep him, but he refused. I secretly helped Agu escape, yet he did not manage to flee. The day Agu was recaptured, Gang Gu dragged me to the basement for punishment. Agu clung to his pants, begging, Please, stop. Don't hit him, I won't run away again, I promise. Gang Gu severed one of my fingers and tossed it before Agu, pointing at me. If you run again, I will break both of his legs. Agu picked up my severed finger, weeping inconsolably. He accepted his fate. The night before Agu was sent away, I held him close and said, Do not be afraid. I will come for you. Wait for me to rescue you. That wait stretched on for over a decade. By the time I had gained notoriety in the South District and caught Zhuang Rong's attention, after I had murdered Gang Gu and those traffickers, deliberately luring the federals to the South District to dismantle the trafficking dens, I finally had the means to search for Agu. I searched extensively, eventually finding the Gu family under the federals. They told me Agu had been adopted by the Gu family. The first time I saw Gu Juin, I mistook him for Agu. He seemed to be thriving, surrounded by classmates and friends. He radiated righteousness, devoid of any trace of his former plight. He no longer needed me. My presence would only serve as a disruption. The shadows of my past would become an indelible stain upon him. I remained hidden in the shadows, silently watching over him, protecting him. In secret, I handled some sordid affairs for him, ensuring that the sinister underbelly of the Federation never touched him. I staunchly upheld his belief in righteousness and justice. Fortunately, as a person steeped in darkness, I was ideally positioned to support a radiant moon. I observed Gu Juin, witnessing him accomplish what I could neither do nor dare to do. I watched him walk upright, with honor and integrity, beneath the sun's embrace. I saw him shed his school uniform and don military attire, stepping into opposition against me. A sense of joy filled me. I even orchestrated my own conclusion. Once I completed all my deeds, I would perish at the hands of Agu, until I realized Gu Juin was not Agu. My fervent affections had been misplaced. I was filled with shame and fury when Gu Juin came to the stronghold to apprehend me, only to be captured by my subordinates. I beheld his defiant visage, his eyes brimming with disdain, and I was utterly vexed. The Federation could not produce another Gu Juin. There was no other individual as pure and upright as he. That purity was something I had painstakingly cultivated. So, why did he harbor contempt for me? Irrationally, I thought that he, who had impersonated my Agu and reaped the benefits for so long, ought to offer me some recompense. The night has every right to bask in the moonlight. I gradually sullied Gu Juin, becoming intoxicated by the games of power and desire. I slowly forgot that my original quest was to find Agu. I waited for you for 14 years. Do you have any idea how elated I was when you first invited me to the manor? I donned my finest attire. Yet you made me wait outside, listening to you converse with Gu Juin. Lin Yu, I loathe you. Why didn't you come looking for me? Why can't you see me standing right in front of you? What is so special about Gu Juin? Why bind him but not me? I could be your plaything. I would obey you more than Gu Juin does. Just beckon me and I would come, but you don't want me. Your eyes are only for Gu Juin. Tears from Bai Mu fell upon my face. You have long forgotten me. I felt a moment of disorientation, wanting to refute him. Don't deceive me. How could you be Agu? Agu is an alpha. I am 18, my pheromones mutated and differentiated into a beta. The face before me overlapped with that of the child who, 12 years prior, wept while tending to my wounds. He called me Ashungu. Ohun-yi. You are the most formidable Omega. Ashungu, be good, it won't hurt. Ashungu, when we grow up, will run away, and I will kill them for you. Is this retribution? Is it? The faith I held betrayed me. The wound I inflicted was upon an old acquaintance I had sought for half a lifetime. Damn it, playing me for a fool. I wanted to wipe away his tears, but my hands were soiled. I could only grasp the clean fabric of my sleeve to brush his face. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't realize it was you. I never intended to hurt you. Before I could finish my sentence, Bai Mu was yanked away from me. 2 inspectors restrained him on either side, fastening handcuffs around his wrists. Gu Juin approached, crouched down, and secured my wrists together with handcuffs. I did not resist. If you must, then so be it, but what crime has Vice Officer Bai committed that you would cuff him to? With a scoff, he replied, Dog bites dog? Gu Juin lowered his gaze and quietly stated, murdering the warden, harboring criminals, and illegally possessing military arms. Those are enough to condemn him 100 times over. What? I turned to Bai Mu, who hung his head in silence. He truly did it. In the fleeting moment of realization, many thoughts surged through my mind. Subjected to torture only to have my wounds stitched. Threatened with my Omega identity, yet given suppression patches. From beginning to end, Bai Mu had always been formidable with his words. Bai Mu was taken away for detention, and I looked at Gu Juin and said, I will confess, but there is one condition. I want Bai Mu to live. Gu Juin raised a hand to wipe the blood from my face, speaking softly, Lin Yu, you hold affection for everyone, yet are indifferent to me. You have no idea how much I despise you. I could have become the Federation's finest soldier, but you ruined everything. You have made me this way and yet refuse to take responsibility. Should we meet again, I would not hesitate to kill you upon our first encounter. But in this life I accept it. I am worthless, unable to let go, and thus I deserve this. He withdrew his hand, adjusted his cap to obscure most of his face, and, in a tone of extreme calmness, said, "I promise you, I will ensure Bai Mu's life is spared." Before confessing, I requested to see Bai Mu. When the screen connected, Bai Mu was in the midst of interrogation. He discovered that Lin Yu is an Omega. I had been interrogating Lin Yu for a year with no results. The Federation applied pressure. He sought to have an Alpha mark Lin Yu, to exploit his heat period and control him, to destroy him. I had no choice. He is the warden. If he dies, Lin Yu will be safe. I gazed at Bai Mu on the screen, touching the suppression patch on my nape. From the very start, Bai Mu had been helping me conceal my Omega identity. The suppression patches had always come from him. During the interrogations, he had not let anyone else intervene. 1. He resented me. 2. He did not trust others. The Federation's interrogation methods could not match Bai Mu's brightness. No matter how fierce he appeared, it was merely a whip's crack. I owed Bai Mu a debt. I closed my eyes and said to Gu Juan, "We can begin." I was taken from Shifeng Star and incarcerated on a remote little planet called Chunmang. After the interrogation, I did not see Gu Juan again. 6 months later, Marshal Gu Feng of the Federation arrived on this small planet. Bursting in with fervor, he drew his gun upon seeing me. "Lin Yu, I'll put you down." I stared at the muzzle, unmoving. The Marshal, now in his 50s, glared with wide eyes, his chest heaving before he suddenly fired several rounds into the ceiling, instructing the guards behind him, "Bind that thing for me." In a hillside villa on the outskirts of the central star city, Gu Juan lay in repose. He was surrounded by an array of indiscernible tubes. Several doctors bustled about him. I stood before the glass, stunned, and asked, "What happened to him?" Gu Feng's brow furrowed deeply. The underworld forces in the south were entirely eradicated by him. This young man acted with such ruthlessness, leaving no escape route, killing Zhuang Rong, and inciting a frenzy of revenge from that pack of rabid dogs. When he was brought back, he had over 20 wounds on him. He was nearly out of breath. Gu Feng tugged at his lip. "Lin Yu, had you given him even a hint of false information, he would have been reduced to ashes by now. He has offended both the Federation and the gangsters. I thought he was upholding the justice of a soldier." Gu Feng tossed a stack of documents at me. Turns out, he was avenging his lover. The documents chronicled everything from when I was sold at the age of 8 to my imprisonment at 28. Many names were circled, all individuals I wished to eliminate. Each name bore a red cross, the ink varying in age. Zhuang Rong's cross was the freshest, accompanied by traces of blood. Gu Feng pointed to a notation. 3 years ago, Zhuang Rong was already investigating you. Had you not gone to prison, you would have met a grim fate on the streets within 6 months. Gu Juan hurriedly shoved you into prison, thrusting his head at Shifeng. What kind of place is that? To forsake a promising future and dive into that godforsaken spot. At this point, the meaning was abundantly clear. "Lin Yu, I have only this one son. You have brought him to this state. I should have killed you." Gu Juan appeared somewhat stabilized as the doctors emerged one by one. Gu Feng halted his words and said, "Go in and see him. Stay with him. He lives. You live, he dies, you die." That evening, the butler escorted me to my chamber for rest. The butler, a middle-aged man, was referred to by Gu Feng as Old Bai. I gazed at him and inquired, "Are you Bai Mu's?" Old Bai replied, "Foster father." I opened my mouth to speak, but he continued, "Sir, Bai Mu is well. You need not worry." I swallowed my words and stepped into the bedroom. "Very well. That is good." Upon entering, I immediately discerned that this room belonged to Gu Juan. A faint scent of citrus lingered in the air. As I circled the room, I discovered a photograph on Gu Juan's bedside. A 3-year-old boy clad in a miniature police uniform, brandishing a toy gun, proudly raised his chin. Suddenly, I recalled a woman's gentle voice. "What do you wish to be when you grow up, little you?" "I want to be a policeman." I abruptly flipped the photograph face down on the table, clenching my teeth. A single tear fell. Damn it! I had long ceased to think of my mother, and I no longer aspired to be a policeman. How could Gu Juan possess such a photograph? On the 56th day, Gu Juan awoke. He stared at me for a long moment, his gaze settling upon the hand I held, and asked, "Who are you? Why are you holding my hand?" My pupils constricted. What was this? Gu Feng seemed quite pleased regarding Gu Juan's memory loss. With a wave of his hand, he intended to send me back to Chunmang for continued confinement. Before I could leave, Gu Feng erupted into an argument with Gu Juan, storming out of the hospital room, wreaking havoc in the living room. Unfilial child. Unfilial child. When the guards came to inquire about my return to Chen Mang, Gu Feng grew even angrier. Return? Where shall he return? Let him stay put. Whenever Gu Juan is fully recovered, he will go back. Thus I remained. Once Gu Juan was able to rise from bed, he delighted in wandering the villa, eventually arriving at his bedroom, asking, "Why are you in my room?" I replied, "I will move to the guest room tomorrow." Gu Juan regarded me. "You stay in my room. Are you my Omega?" My throat tightened. "I am not." Gu Juan pressed his lips together and turned to leave. Perhaps he was displeased. Had I known, I would have told a lie. Why provoke his discontent? I had deceived him more than once or twice. Gu Feng drank every evening, and when inebriated, he was as loquacious as a gossiping old woman, lamenting Gu Juan's disobedience. One day he suddenly remarked, "Lin Yu, you know you won't survive, right? The criminal forces in the southern district were being eradicated, and Zhuang Rong was dead. I had lost my utility. The Federation would eventually seek retribution against me. Death was my inevitable fate. I was aware. After Gu Juan's recovery, I was sent back to Chenmang. 3 months later, representatives from the Federation arrived to announce my sentence. Life imprisonment. I abruptly lifted my head. This outcome was abnormal. The Federation had delineated my activity range on Chenmang Star, confining me to a small house at the foot of a high mountain, adorned with a collar equipped with a miniature bomb. Should I stray beyond the designated area, the bomb would detonate. I was monitored by only 2 officers, stationed in another house halfway up the mountain. The officer delivering my meals was a round-faced beta. Whatever his superior had procured that day, he would present to me. Rabbits, wild chickens, and one day he even brought a dead snake. Our officer says snake meat is tender. I do not enjoy eating snake. Then what do you prefer? Rabbits. Thus I feasted on wild rabbit for an entire month. One day, I managed to incapacitate the round-faced beta and climbed up the mountain. Before that house, I encountered the officer. He had his back to me, sleeves rolled up, skillfully handling a rabbit. The rabbits up here will soon be depleted. Gu Juan's knife fell. He abruptly stood and fled. I truly did not anticipate this. After pursuing him for 2 miles, I finally subdued him, pinning him against a tree trunk. Why the hell are you running? Gu Juan's Adam's apple bobbed as he turned his head away. I spotted a collar identical to mine around his neck and felt a surge of anger, tugging at it and demanding, "What is this? Why are you wearing it? You are not a criminal." What was there to misunderstand? My survival undoubtedly came at someone else's expense. Life imprisonment. I was not the only one confined. Gu Juan was as well. Gu Juan lowered his gaze and stated, "You need not bear the burden. This signifies nothing, and I will not hold you accountable for it. To protect one's Omega is the duty of an Alpha. Even if you do not acknowledge me as your Alpha, I have marked you. That has nothing to do with you. Whoever I mark, I will." What was he about to say? I seized his collar, biting his lip, kissing him until he was breathless. "Say something I wish to hear, such as how you are hopelessly in love with me." Gu Juan swallowed hard, his gaze evasive. "Do not flatter yourself. I do not love you that much." "Very well." I chuckled softly. "I am the one hopelessly in love with you." Gu Juan glared at me. "I am not so easily deceived. Your ears are turning red." Gu Juan. He pressed his lips together and muttered, "What do you want to deceive me with this time? Just say it." I choked back my words. Truly, evil begets evil. After committing numerous wrongdoings, when I spoke the truth, he would not believe me. Sighing, I flicked the collar around his neck. "You are in a more pitiful state than I. What do you possess that warrants my deceit?" Gu Juan faltered. "If it is not worth deceiving, then why do you still kiss me? Get off me." I did not budge. I embraced him, resting my head on his shoulder. "Gu Juan, you know I love you." I tore off the suppression patch on the back of my neck, allowing my pheromones to surge forth uncontrollably towards him. My glands have been neutered once. My heat cycle is irregular. Yet each time I see you, I am in heat. You are my fixed and absolute heat cycle. My pheromones have long since revealed my fervent obsession for you. This is no ruse. I cradled Gu Juan's face. This is my retribution. Gu Juan studied me for a long moment, his eyes shimmering, appearing as if he wished to believe. My little dog. I knew how to speak to make him happy. Citrus intertwined with strawberry, savoring it in his mouth. Gu Juan inhaled deeply, striving for restraint. Put the suppression patch back on. I just killed a rabbit. My hands are filthy. You need not use your hands. I unfastened his buttons, Do not move. I shall take charge. Gu Juan's eyes turned red. Lin Yu. I smiled, kissing his chin. Do not fidget. Your dirty hands must not touch me. Gu Juan's breath hitched, excitement mounting. A masochist. Gu Juan obediently refrained from touching me, allowing me to explore him thoroughly. In the throes of passion, I bit his glands, futilely attempting to mark him, leaving bite marks as I stubbornly declared, mine. Gu Juan gasped for breath, his eyelashes fluttering, shielding his eyes with his arm, turning his head away, sneaking a smile. Very well, I had brought him pleasure. Later, that round-faced beta was also reassigned. On Chunmang Star, atop the northern mountain, there existed a small prison. The warden there was an alpha, tasked with the eternal supervision of the sole criminal within the prison, a malevolent omega, until the end of his days. In an undisclosed federal assembly, a young general once renounced his military rank and pledged to the Federation. I shall guard the criminal Lin Yu for life, never to depart from Beishan. Should I violate this vow, I shall be judged and sentenced alongside Lin Yu. The end of the text. Thank you for listening, and we shall meet again in the next tale.